Hey guys, and welcome back to a brand new video. So today I'm doing a townie makeovers on some of the new Sims that we got with the Werewolf game pack. So the ones that I'm focusing on in this video are the ones that aren't actually residents, that kind of just are in the world type of thing. I will be doing a makeover on the other 3 Sims, so I believe that it is just those 7 Sims that are in the world. I couldn't see any other ones. I'm pretty sure those are the only ones. And I believe that the Sims uploaded some of the Sims from the trailer, which I kind of am interested to see what they look like, and maybe I'd also give them makeovers. I don't know. So the first Sim that I'm making over is Celene Lopez. So we actually met her in the first episode of my Werewolves Let's Play, and I wasn't sure whether or not she was a werewolf or whether or not she was a part of a pack, but turns out she's not a werewolf by any means. And so I was kind of curious to see what her backstory was, because I didn't really know much about the Sims backstory, so I definitely want to take a dive into them. And I'm going to go ahead and read them just in case you guys don't know who these Sims are and what they're about. So it says, ever since she was a little girl, Celene has been fascinated by romanticized tales of lycanthropy. However, she got more than she bargained for while on a midnight date in the woods. Thankfully, she discovered an antidote which prevented her transformation. She's more cautious now, but her position as a local barkeep gives her a front row view to the wondrous world of werewolves without the risk of injury. So it's actually cool reading that, because her backstory ties in with another character, which is Lou. So the date was with him, and when we get to making over him, we'll get into his backstory. But I really liked her kind of country girl style, so I went in more on that, and I was definitely going back and forth with how I wanted her to look. Like, I genuinely liked this look, but then I was like, I kind of missed the cowboy boots, and that's what she originally had. So I basically went back to the cowboy boots, the cowboy hat, like the official one, even though I really love this hat. But then I kept going back and forth between hairs, because I went from this hair to a ponytail, and then I just didn't know whether I liked that, because I did like it, but I just think she suited a bunch of different hairstyles, and honestly I could probably just give them all to her. But in the end, I ended up going with the cowboy hat from Strangerville and like a wavier hairstyle, which I think suits her as well. Like, I feel like she looks really put together. Not that she didn't before, because she did, but yeah, I definitely wanted to keep the cowboy boots and that whole vibe going the whole time. So I did have somebody say that they could see Ren and Celene getting together, which I kind of like, and I was already thinking about that as soon as we saw her, and I don't know, maybe that will happen, I'm not sure, but it could cause some problems between Lou and Ren when they get closer together, because I want Ren to join the wolf, what do I want to call it, wolfgang, the Wild Fangs pack. So I think it would be kind of interesting maybe to see what happens there, because Lou would probably get jealous since he kind of has his eyes for Celene. So also another thing is I ended up going back into Create a Sim once again after I already kind of finished her, and then that's when I was doing like my final touches and adding new hair and whatever, because a lot of my skins, well, not a lot, but like I think like close to 10 of my skin overlays that I used were broken, and thankfully I tweeted about it and somebody replied showing me that there's a fix on how to do it, and so I fixed them and now my skins are working. And even though it took me like over an hour to like figure it out and whatever, because I was having problems and figuring out which skins were broken, but in the end everything's working, so I'm really happy. Next we have Rory Oaklow. I think that's how you say her last name, Oaklow? I don't think there's any other way you would say that. So she is the leader of the Wild Fangs. So I'm going to go ahead and quickly dive into her backstory and talk about who she is. So most of Moonwood Mill knows Rory as the leader of the Wild Fangs, as I said, but she first arrived as a confused young werewolf under the care of Christopher Volkov. He tried to counsel, control, and to nurture her like one of his garden flowers, but the two grew apart as Rory grew up. His ideals and values stifled her inner wolf until Rory chose to listen to the beast inside her and moved out to form her own pack. Nowadays, Rory may seem like she has it all figured out, but deep down, she's still discovering how to be a leader she always wished Christopher could have been. That is so interesting to me, because her brother is Jacob, who lives with Christopher, and they're part of the Moon Collective, or Moonwood Collective, I think it's called. So I really like that they're kind of like split up, and there's probably a lot of tension between, you know, both packs and her and the family. So I'm actually excited to read their backstories, because I don't really know anything about them. So when we get into making them over, I'm kind of curious to see how they feel about everything. And plus, through playing and talking to them, like asking about Moonwood Mill, you discover more as far as their backstories. Like that's how I found out about her and Jacob's relationship. So I think that's so interesting, is like you can continue learning about them and everything that's going on in Moonwood Mill. So now moving on to Rory's makeover, I really love how she ended up turning out. Like I ended up giving her my favorite pants. Like honestly, as soon as I was making her, I was like, these are the pants for her. Like there was no question asked. I think I've used these pants maybe like 2-3 times in Create a Sim already. It's just, they're so good. Like I cannot help it. And I did adjust her face, but I ended up going back and fixing it because I noticed that at one point when I clicked on her face or her jaw, it like cinched in way more than I thought it did. So I ended up going and adjusting that, and also giving her a new skin because again, I made her over before I fixed my skins. So I changed her up. I gave her different eyes, which I actually love the eyes that she has on now because they look more occult-like, but also have like the red kind of inner area, which you guys will see in just a minute. But oh my god, I love how she turned out. I just felt like she'd be pierced up and tattooed. Like honestly, Rory's probably one of my favorite characters from the pack. I'm not gonna lie. Like ever since like the trailer, obviously this is kind of a new version of Rory because, you know, CC-fied and everything like that, and adjusted obviously too, but I'm really a fan. And I also gave her a scar because I thought that maybe she would be a little bit more scarred up. Like she had scars on her body, but she didn't have anything on her face, which I mean she doesn't need to, but I kind of like that. And also, speaking of scars on the face, because of some of the skin overlays, sometimes you can't see the scars, or they're at least very light. That's why on Celene, she originally has like a fairly large scar, but the skin overlay I was using doesn't really show it, which kind of sucks. So she doesn't really have much of one except for like very slightly on the eye. So yeah, there isn't really much I can do there. Oh, and I really wanted to keep like the kind of darker like makeup around her eyes, and oh my god, Cryptic Sim with the eyeshadows, like literally as soon as I put this on, I was like, this is it. Because originally she has like a really thick black cat eyeliner, so I decided to just more so play that up with eyeshadow and keep the eyeliner a little bit more tame. But I don't know, especially with these contacts, like I think, ooh, she looks so good. Oh, and I gave her dimples. I don't know why. I was just like thinking like, you know, maybe dimples would add to her, and I think it did. So a big fan, a really big fan. Now moving on to Lou. So with Lou, let me just tell you, I don't think I struggled as hard on anybody but him. And it's mainly because I couldn't find a skin overlay that I felt made him look like himself, like his original form, like, you know, Max's, but also like kind of add more of a slightly realistic vibe to him, a skin that like worked and didn't completely change up his features. And although it was kind of hard to find one without looking too Maxis-like, because if you guys know, like I tend to reach towards less Maxis match type of skin. It's not that I don't like them, it's just what I go for nowadays. But I was trying to go and find one, and I just couldn't see one that like looked really good. And so half the time me working on him was going back and forth between skins. Like I'd be working on parts of him and I'd be like, okay, I need to change the skin. And thankfully I found one that I didn't necessarily mind. I feel like I had to just accept that he's not going to look exactly how he looks like in his Maxis form. And I mean, even without custom content, he still looks really good, but obviously I wanted to try and take a stab at it and see what he looks like with custom content, but I didn't expect for it to be as hard as it was. Now, this was like my second attempt at making him over, because I tried my first time and I was just like, no. And that was when I was like, okay, maybe I'll fix some of the skins that are broken and maybe it'll work. And I don't even think I ended up using a skin that I ended up fixing, but that's okay. Half the battle was trying to find one that worked for him, so thankfully in the end I did. But let's get into his backstory. So shortly after Lou's arrival in Moonwood Mill, he tried to impress his date Celene by taunting the town's notoriously feral werewolf Greg. His poor decisions led to painful consequences for both him and Celene, but while she sought out a remedy, Lou figured he could ride this one out, which didn't turn out as anticipated. Will this master of mischief learn to love his new inner werewolf, or will he try to find a way out of the mess he's found himself in? This makes me want to go into their households just to see the relationship between him and Celene, to see if there's any negatives there, because I feel like Celene, since she was so interested in werewolves and everything, like she was definitely into wanting to find out more about them. But since the date took a wrong turn, I wonder if there's tension there and whether or not, you know, he's still pursuing her. So yeah, because I don't think they're like actually together. Like I don't think so, but I'm probably gonna check just to see. So yeah, I was also debating on the two hairstyles because there was two long hairstyles that I really liked. There was one that was more tamed and then like one that was kind of tousled. And I ended up asking my friends to see which one was better, and they ended up picking the one that was more tamed, which is the one I was kind of leaning towards anyway, even though I think he looks good in both of them. I'm just glad that I ended up figuring something out for him, because I was about to just like not make him over because I was like, I'm having too much of a hard time with him. But yeah, I think he looks good. I will say though, I'm really curious to see the backstory between him and Rory and maybe how they came together. I wonder if there's anything on that with like by talking to them, whether he came to her or she found him and kind of guided him through him becoming a werewolf or what. So next up we have Wolfgang Wilder. He was so easy to make over because I already liked how he looked, but I still wanted to change him up a little bit just so that he looks a little different. Honestly, I was still debating between what beard to go with, because although I really loved his really bushy beard, I also really liked the other one. So I don't know. We'll see which one I end up sticking with, because I might go back and change it, but I think he just looks good in general. I also thought that he was a part of the Moonwood collective, but I don't think he is. The reason why I thought that is because in my Let's Play, he was hanging around the Moonwood Collective area or the hangout spot, and so I thought so. Maybe he is, but I actually don't see anything about that in his backstory, but which I'll go ahead and read now. Wolfgang has lived in Moonwood Mill for decades, where he's been documenting the history of werewolves and trying to give them a brighter future. A famous author who specializes in werewolf fiction, his books have introduced the idea of the friendly neighborhood werewolf into popular culture. Because he uses a pen name, nobody realizes he himself is actually the very thing he champions. I really love that he's an author, and I think that this will make him and Eden from my series bond, and even if he's not a part of the Moonwood Collective, it's somebody that she can talk to and confide in. So I think it's gonna be really interesting to see, because I feel like with her finding out the history of, you know, everything going on in Moonwood Mill, I think she would lead down the path of Wolfgang, since she's also an author and now gonna be writing about werewolves and all this stuff and her findings. So I think it's kind of interesting. So it's the next day and I decided to go in and just change his beard up again, even though I think he still looks good with a shorter beard and I like his original outfit, but I just wanted to kind of stick more to his original vibe. I really like his bushier beard, so I went back to that. And then I also ended up changing his outfit, so now he's wearing a turtleneck with a pair of jeans from Cottage Living. So I think it looks cute, although I do really like the like khaki colored / cream colored pants that he had on before with that turtleneck, but I don't know, there's just so many choices and I think he looked good in a lot of things, but I had to make a final decision and that's what I ended up with. So that is pretty much it. I really love how they ended up turning out. Yeah, that is pretty much it. I'm gonna show some before and after photos so you guys can see the difference. But with that being said, I'm gonna go ahead and go. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys have a wonderful day. If you did enjoy, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll talk to you guys in a new video very soon. Bye guys.